This is Zach Ditmars, production manager, art director for Fish Talk Magazine. Thanks for tuning in for another edition of Live with Lenny. Tonight we'll be discussing targeting slot redfish on the Chesapeake Bay. But first off, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the upcoming tournament this weekend. The CCA Red Trout will be held down at Buzz's Marina. You can check it out at ccamaryland.org, Red Trout Tournament. In this tournament, we'll be targeting redfish and speckled trout. Hopefully this talk tonight gives you some insight on how to catch those species. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Lenny Rudo, and he's going to tell you about our special guest for tonight. Now, I must say, Lenny has taken me on numerous adventures since we've met. Many, many exciting adventures. But none so much as the adventure that Luke and Daniel of Fish All 50 have gone on. I'd like to welcome Luke Conson of Fish All 50, and him and Lenny are going to tell you about his latest adventure. Welcome, Luke.
Hey,
What's
Luke,
going
how you
on?
doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. So that was a great introduction, Zach. Thank you. But first, while we got you here, Luke, as our special guest, some people out there might not have heard of Fish All 50 yet. So why don't you give us the elevator pitch on exactly what it is?
So basically, over the past year, starting in August of 2020 and finishing in early August of 2021, me and my friend from my hometown, who is now my college roommate, Daniel Balsarac, went to all 50 states and caught the official state fish in each one.
Wow, that is pretty dang cool. Now,
yeah, and we are as far as we can find, we're the first people to do it. So that makes it a little bit more unique.
Interesting. That is an adventure, and that might inspire others. But, that makes me wonder. I got to ask you, Luke. Do any states have like some weird thing like the snail darter for their state fish, or did you encounter any really weird species doing this?
Arkansas was the alligator gar, which was, coming from the East Coast, that's a pretty unique fish. That's not really one that we see around here a whole lot. And then this was not a state fish, but in Oklahoma, we had a guy take us out, and we got to fish for paddlefish.
Ooh.
And that was one of the coolest experiences of the trip. Those things are just the weirdest fish I have ever encountered.
So
I can't even. Yes, we did. We both caught a couple. We both had one that was probably pushing 50, 60 pounds. They swim like sharks. It's a really, that was an awesome experience. But for the most part, just they pick something that's native to the state. So like a certain kind of trout or a bass or catfish or salmon, something along those lines.
So when we get into the core of today's topic, we're going to be talking redfish, right?
Right.
And so which states where did you fish for redfish?
So Texas and North Carolina are the only two states that have redfish as their state fish. We did not fish for redfish in those states, though, because they also had freshwater state fish that were more convenient for us to go catch just per our route. But we caught, I don't even know how many redfish down in Louisiana fishing for speckled trout, which is their state fish down there. And we put in a couple days down there and just caught more redfish than you can count. So I love redfish. I wish more states had it as their state fish because they're a blast to catch, but only Texas and North Carolina.
Interesting. So, and now you guys are back in school, right?
Yes, we're at Clemson University in South Carolina.
So this was kind of like a, I don't know what you call it, a COVID break adventure?
Yes. Well, this was between high school and college for us. So we just took 1 year off before going to school. So graduated high school, heard that classes were going to be online, didn't really want to pay for online classes. So we decided to defer our admission until this fall and made the most of our year off.
And why isn't Daniel here with us today?
Daniel's got a test. Daniel's taking engineering, and they are getting hit hard with homework right now. So he wishes he could have been here, but he's got a lot of work to do.
Well, I certainly hope that doesn't put a crimp in your fishing style.
Oh, as soon as we adjust to the schoolwork, we'll be right back out there fishing. There's a lot of new territory to get to know down here. And we can't wait to get back out there and, just discover this new area that we're in, because there's got to be big fish somewhere down here, and we're going to find them.
No doubt. That is very cool. So let me ask you this. Most of the folks who are tuning in tonight, they're anglers. They want to catch more bigger fish, right?
Yes.
You guys fished all 50 states. You must have picked up a couple cool fishing tips that just like blew your mind, that you're like, wow, I'm taking this home back to Virginia and I'm going to apply these fishing tips. What can you give me, like a top 3 list?
I would say one, this is not going to impact us Maryland, Virginia anglers as much, but in the Midwest, when you're fishing and it's below freezing, chapstick on the eyes of your rod, and it keeps it from freezing, because we're out there fishing for walleye in 15 degrees, and every 2 minutes you have to pull off your gloves and defrost your eyes, or you can't cast anymore. If you put chapstick on the inside, doesn't happen. So that one was super helpful. What else? This is probably pretty common, but for live bait or cut bait, we learned a lot about bridling, because that's what they do for alligator gar. So that's where you just tie it to the hook instead of sticking it straight on, and it stays on a lot better. So I've started using that for catfishing and carp fishing, and that's been pretty useful. Let's see, one other one that I picked up. I don't know. I mean, I learned it's all just species specific stuff that we learned, like fishing for all these things that,
wait a minute. That's a great tip in and of itself. It's all species specific. That is so true.
There you go.
When you ask someone, what are you going fishing for? And they say, I don't know, whatever. You pretty much know they're not like a very good angler, right?
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And we learned that pretty quickly. That definitely, once we learned that lesson and started keying in on the specifics, you just got it. There's a lot of information to fishing, and everything is different. So the more you narrow down your approach to it, the less factors you have to control, and you'll catch more fish that way.
Yeah, you got to target your species.
Yeah, you do.
Well, man, that's an awesome adventure. I applaud you guys. You got another one coming up? Or are you just going to try and graduate college or something?
Graduating college would be great, and that's probably going to happen. But we're looking forward to our next fishing adventure, and I don't know when it'll be. But the summer's coming up in less than a year. There's winter break. There's we've got a 5-day fall break. If we get COVID, we have to leave for 10 days. So I figure we could get out and do some fishing there. If it goes wrong. I don't know what the next adventure will be, but I know that there is one coming. So this is not the end of Fish All 50.
Very cool. I love it. Well, great job.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming and talking to us all about your adventures. Now, Zach, I got a little announcement of my own.
All right.
You ready for this? All right. We have an uber cool prize to give away tonight. I mean, this is stupendous. And I'm going to hold it up in front of the camera. Ooh, look at this, people. Look at this. A customized fish talk lure made by Lip Rippers. Is that upside down? I can't even tell. Might be upside down. Just it is upside down. Okay, well, just in case, I was going to flip it over. There it is. Lip Rippers. These are hand painted. The finish is phenomenal. They got the swinging singles instead of the trebles, so you're not hurting as many fish. And on top of that, they're much easier to get off the hook. And trust me, these things are sticky. They are sticky. So this awesome topwater lure, which says Fish Talk right on the side, is going to be won by some lucky viewer tonight. Now, we're going to do it as we usually do. Folks, you are welcome to chime in questions. Just leave them in the comments. Zach will throw them up on screen and yell at me when I'm not answering them quickly enough. And at the end of the show, all the names of people who ask questions go into a hat. and then he will pick a lucky winner. And there it is. That's a seriously nice prize, right? Right? Luke, would you throw this?
Absolutely.
You know it, right? Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff you could catch on that.
absolutely. All right, let's get on to redfish.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Enjoy.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, give me slide number 1, Zach. Come on with slide number 1.
Got it.
Here it comes. Here it comes. And there it is. Now, I got to tell you, folks, I was so happy when I got this puppy drum. This was my birthday fish. It was my birthday. And I wasn't even going to go fishing. Honestly, I wasn't. And my son, David, who's standing there next to me, he kind of talked me into it. He was like, Dad, how can you not go fishing on your birthday? And I was like, oh, man, I don't want to get up early in the morning. And you guys are leaving early in the morning. And he was like, come on, Dad. So I went. Okay. And we ended up getting 5 of these guys, plus some really little mini puppies, too. Very cool stuff. It was great. It was very exciting. And what really made it so exciting for me personally is, you know, in the last, I don't know, 5-8 years, every drum that I've caught in Maryland waters has either been too big or too small. No slot fish. And we've been getting more and more pups in the slot in recent years. Of course, Virginia, you guys are lucky. You guys get them way more often, but they don't always really come up in the Maryland waters. That does appear to be changing. And this year, you know, we had a phenomenal spec run early on this season. Good spec fishing throughout the summer. My bet would be it's about to get back on fire again as the water chills off a little bit. And the pups and the specks, they kind of run in the same zone. So awesome to see these fish. Zach, go ahead and take us to the next slide, please. By the way, that fish right there was a point lookout. He was in the Potomac. So I wanted to throw this slide up here because you see hanging out of that little drum's mouth a shad dart. And what was on that shad dart was a grass shrimp. Kind of an oddball catch, right? This is in Ramsey Lake off the South River. It was last summer. But I wanted to point out the fact that you can encounter drum really doing just about anything anywhere. And it's not all that radical to catch one when you're, say, white perch fishing, which is exactly what we were doing when that guy hit. Now, that said, Zach, please go ahead and take us to the next slide. Oh, it blinked. We didn't get, oh, there we go. Okay. Can you make that big? Make that big. You can get rid of me for a second here. I want folks to see the white paddle tail in that fish's mouth. That white paddle tail, it's a great lure for rockfish. It's a great lure for specks. Well, guess what? It's a great lure for puppy drum too. I have changed one thing when it comes to the white paddle tail and I'm fishing for puppies. And that is because at least this year, what I've been finding on these trips after these fish, there's some snapper bluefish around. There are a lot of lizard fish where these guys are. There are, of course, specks. If you're using a regular plastic, they get bit off quite a bit. So that's actually a Z-Man. I believe that model's a diesel minnow, 3-incher being fished on, we were using 1/2 ounce and 3/4 ounce heads. And that proved to just be a wonderful bait. It doesn't get snapped off by the toothy fish. The drums smack it like a freight train. And on a 1/2 ounce or a 3/4 ounce head, you can bounce it right along the bottom. And that is how the bulk of these drum are getting caught right now. Now, remember, we're talking about slot fish, right? This is a completely different fishery than the bull reds that are out in the main stem bay underneath of the working birds. Whole different story, whole different ballgame. These fish in particular, you're going to get mostly holding around structure. That can be on the shoreline. It can be off the shoreline. I've been doing my best on fish that are holding in right around 10 feet of water. And there's obstruction on bottom. I'm guessing it's rocks. I don't know that for a fact because I haven't dived down there and looked at it. But it's definitely hard bottom. It's structure that sticks up. And you do have to bring plenty of extras of these jigs because you're going to go through, you know, well, anywhere from 2 to 6 or 8 of them in a day. You do snag bottom in these areas with the structure. It's part of the game. But the reds do like to hunt around the bottom in these zones. And so you really do want to just be bouncing right along the bottom. You can't worry about snagging and losing lures. That's all part of the game. All right, Zach, go ahead and take us to the next one if you would. And in this next slide, we have.
Sure thing. But real quick, Lenny. I think you answered this about 10 feet, but Rudy asked what depth you were bottom mousing. I just wanted to revisit that real quick.
10 feet, 10, 12 feet has been the zone that I've been finding them in. That's not to say you're not going to find them in 2 feet, because you will. And that's not to say that you aren't going to find them in 20 feet, because you will. But where I've been fishing for these fish in particular, each run, it's been a 10 to 12 foot zone has kind of been the hot territory. I will say that in past years with the smaller puppies, quite often, almost always, those fish are right up on the shoreline. They're right on riprap, they're right on points, they're on stuff like that. But that's where I've been hitting them, 10 feet of water.
Cool. Hey, Lenny, we got some questions about locations. You want to dive into that, or you want to hit that?
Throw them on screen, man. Throw them on up there.
All righty. So Dave asked, how far up the Chesapeake do the redfish come in numbers?
So there's no answer to that question, because the answer to that question this year is different than it was last year. And I guarantee you, it'll be different again next year. Now, that said, it's not uncommon to see them as far north as the Severn, that zone. Not usually in numbers thick enough to go and target them, but some years, on occasion. This year, I've heard tell of puppies being caught at Poplar. I haven't done it myself, and I have not seen photographic evidence that actually shows it is in fact at Poplar. Now, I know they've been down towards the mouth of the Chop Tank. Lots of them down there, Point Lookout. That's where I've been running down to. Tons of them down there. But anywhere, right now, I would say anywhere from Poplar south is a good shot. And from the Chop Tank south is like a really solid, okay, you target them, you got a good shot of finding them. But every year is different. Every year is different. Last year we had tons of the really little ones, not slot fish. They were like 12 to 16 inches. And then right at the end of the season, I didn't get any. I heard of a couple guys who got legal slot fish. Ramsey, the South River, the Severn, in that zone. But they were smaller than these fish. These fish we've been averaging 22 to 24 inches. Rudy's comment that he heard some puppies in Middle River last year. I can believe it. I can totally. I didn't hear about that, but I totally buy that. It's the Chesapeake Bay, man. The fish got tails. They're going where they're going. You never know where they're going to pop up. You hear about blacks showing up off the Magathie probably every other year. Again, not in numbers. Hear about one here, one there. But that I do not doubt that for a second. Okay, while we're talking location, we had a couple guys ask about best spot to launch. We also had another guy, Adam, on YouTube ask about where he could where a good spot to launch his 18-foot center console as well. So kind of ties in with the smaller vessels. Okay, so if you're on the western shore, first we got to talk north-south. The farther south you go, honestly, most years the better a shot you're going to have. The Piankatank is a great river to look for the slot reds in. The lower Rap, you'll find some in. Now, if you're farther up in Maryland waters, Point Lookout is certainly a great spot to go. There will be some paddling involved. You may have to go for a little ways, but there's a ton of structure in that relatively shallow, 8, 10, 12-foot zone. And once you locate that structure, man, just bounce them jigs right on it, and you can get them. And in fact, I think we have been around more kayak anglers than boat anglers on these trips down there. That may be wrong, but there have been plenty of kayak guys who've been there, put it that way. I would also toss out there the Patuxent. There are a couple places you can launch there. Now, I haven't heard of as many fish there this year, but last year there were a lot of reds there. A decent number. Again, they were smaller ones, but that's another area. You're far enough down there that you got a good shot. I'm not going to say you're going to catch them every time or anything, but it's far enough down there you got a good shot. Once you get north of there, I kind of hesitate to say you can really target them right now. Different years will bring different fisheries, and it could be that in 2 weeks, who knows, we'll see a bunch of them in the south, in the Severn. Hard to say. But if I was talking to a kayak, if I was going to launch a kayak tomorrow and I wanted my best shot at reds, I would be headed if it's within driving distance, the Pianka tank, and if it's not, the Potomac. Of course, I'll just throw in there, if you feel like a road trip, the inlets in Virginia Beach are fabulous places for them. We're getting constant reports from there. Flip side of that being they're very busy places. The guys who've been going out at night actually have been doing best, but they're catching their slot limits on a regular basis.
All right, cool. So we got a lot more questions coming in, but since we had that slide up going back a few, he's curious about the jig head. It's actually obscured by your hand. Do you have one nearby?
I do. I'm sure I do. I'm absolutely sure I do. Hold on. Hold the phone. Here we go.
Of course you have one nearby.
Absolutely. I don't even have to go down to the boat. That's it right there. Just standard. This one here is a 1/2 ounce. I think we're using 1/2 and 3/4. It's got the same dang. This might even be one that I was casting the other day. It's got that bite. Z-Man can't break these things. Can't bite through them. Takes a lot. So that's it right there. And I would say use as little weight as you can get away with, while still being able to feel it tap down on bottom at the end of every jig. You want to tap and bottom. You really do. So if you don't feel that tap, 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 go to a slightly heavier jig head. If you're feeling a lot of bottom, you're going to snag it. You might want to lighten it up a little bit. All right, you got another question, or are you going to throw my next slide up there?
We got a few questions about water quality and water temperature. Let's see. First off, Herb asked, is clear water important like specs and also moving tide?
So I'm going to say kinda and definitely kinda. Clear water is always important. You'll always get a better bite if you got good water. But I have caught some of these guys in the Potomac when I arrived, looked over the side of the boat and went, oof, man, ain't great, So it's not as important, I don't think, as spec. With specs, it's like you got dirty water, man. You're probably shut down. I don't think it's quite that imperative. Is it helpful? Absolutely, but not that imperative. Now, moving tide, absolutely. That's like kind of critical. If the water's sitting dead, and actually I went through this the other day. I think it was last Tuesday. We had bites. The water stopped. The bites just stopped. And I mean nothing. And for like an hour and a half, it was just deader than a doornail. It just collapsed. But then the water started moving and the fish started biting again. So yeah, you got to have that moving water.
Gotcha. So this one ties into that question as well. Chris asked, what temperature range do the Reds prefer?
So, they'll hang out. They're okay with it getting pretty hot. I would compare it to specs, a lot like specs. When it gets really stupid hot, they're not thrilled about it. But as long as the water's in the low 80s, you're going to be okay. They'll stick around till it drops down into the mid 70s probably. They don't disappear as quickly as, say, the mackerel do, right? We got some cold nights coming up. That could be enough to start those mackerel pushing south. I hope not, but it could be. The Reds will stick around. Like, I'll be surprised if we're not catching these fish through September and probably maybe into October. Kind of all depends. But they should stick around. I expect them to stick around for a while. Now, I'm gonna. This kind of gives away what one of our later slides is, but I guess I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Some of them will stay in the bay right into November. And what's going to happen is there will be a run of them at some point at the power plant. When the surrounding water gets down into like the low 60s, upper 50s, then they're really going to want to leave. And there will be a run at the warm water discharges. It's not just Cover Cliffs. Any of the warm water discharges. Of course, there used to be a kind of a year-round zone for them in Virginia at the Hot Ditch, that's history. They shut that power plant down. But anywhere you got warm water, and of course that translates right into your normal natural warm water when you find areas where you've got a big flat that's sun warmed during a high tide and then drains off. That'll take place more like over in the Tangier Sound, the Salt Islands, that kind of thing. You're going to have areas that will warm up several degrees during the course of the day in the sunshine. And then when that tide falls, that's going to flow out, and there's little inlets and there's little cuts. That's going to suck those redfish in. You got a lot of early questions this time, man, which is great. The best month to target slot reds. Well, Stan, there's no. I gotta fall back to my earlier answer, man. It's like kind of impossible to say, you know. Spring and fall, you know, June and September should be great months. This year, August has been great. Go figure, you know. It's difficult to say because it'll constantly change. Now, when you get farther south into Virginia, you got a little more reliability. You can say, you know, oh man, you know, April, May is going to be great, and then it'll slack off, and then September, October, it'll get great again, you know. But up here in Maryland, where it's more variable, the seasons are much more variable. That's really tough to predict. I guess I'll take another sip of my beverage. Hold on, people. I know Zach's gotten something cooking for us. Oh, another question. Smith Island good for puppy? Yeah, that whole zone, absolutely. It's been kind of odd that I honestly think the west side has been better recently. That could and should change, and there have been plenty of pups caught over on the east side. Smith, Bloodsworth, Tangier, all those zones. And in the fall, they normally get a good run. I should also mention, I hadn't mentioned yet, the St. Mary's is a good river for them. And my daughter goes to St. Mary's College, and her boyfriend got a keeper slot last fall. And I don't think they've gotten a keeper this fall since they've gone back. But that's another spot that I should mention is often really good for them. You could win this. Look at that. I just love these things. Bite locations on the east side from the Chop Tank to Barron. Oh, hey, Chris. A lot of possibilities. Barron itself, Stone Rock. Stone Rock generally gets some reds around it at some point through many seasons. The Lighthouse will grab some, and the Lighthouse Ruins will grab some as well. Cook Point, I have never caught them at Cook Point, but I would be shocked if they didn't go there because there's plenty of specks going in and out of there, plenty of rockfish, and also the Lighthouse Ruin at Todd Point. Now, I haven't caught them there in many years, but many years ago, I'm going back probably 15, 18 years, the Lighthouse Ruins at Todd were a very consistent spec spot and often held, a couple puppies as well. That's another good spot to try. The Ruins at James Island too can be a good one for the specs. I haven't taken any puppies there, but that's another one I'd be shocked if they weren't there. I'm sure they are. I just haven't gotten one. We talk general locations, but what is the best public ramp to use to get on the fish quickly? I need more, Adam. I need to know where you're coming from. because I mean, if you're in Cambridge, the answer is going to be very different than if you're in Baltimore. That's going to be very different than if you're in like, Newport News. So I need more on that. We're going to put that one on hold, Zach. Okay. I need more. Anchor or drift over structure. All right, Tom. Well, dang it. Zach, you got to take me to the next slide for this one because this is very relevant. Take me to the next slide, please, and make it big. Well, you can see, looking at the front of this boat, spot locking it is totally the way to go. Can you anchor? Yeah, sure you can. Will you make a ton of noise? Yeah, you absolutely will. Will your boat shift a whole big bunch as the wind and the tide shift and get you out of position? Yeah, absolutely. Will you find that you anchor in the wrong spot by 10 feet and you got to move the dang boat? Yeah, absolutely. Can you drift over it? Sure you can. Sure you can. And you'll have to motor back up after every drift. The spot lock is just the bomb for this kind of fishing. You can see on this boat, this is a 19-foot Carolina skiff. You pull into place, you drop the motor down, you press the button, you fish. Bite dies off 45 minutes, an hour later. You press the button, you move 30 yards, north, south, east, west, whatever, and you fish and you catch again. I mean, it is a tremendous blessing. So that is really the best way to do it. Can you anchor? Can you drift? Yeah, sure you can. But man, spot lock is the bomb for this. So one of the other reasons I wanted to pull up this slide, though, was I just wanted to show the gear that we're using here for the slots. You can see it's a 3000 class reel. It's on a light St. Croix rod. You got 12-pound braid. It's just a ball to catch these fish on this stuff. Now, if you want to go hunt after the big bulls out in the open bay, this is totally undergunned. Okay, this is not what you use for those fish. This is undergunned. But for slot fish, for the slot reds, it is just fabulous, fabulous action on a rod like this. And you can, the other thing about using a light rig like this is you can feel that half-ounce jig just ticking along the bottom. It's perfect for it. One other thing I wanted to show on here, this particular boat, this is my buddy Jack's boat. You can see it has a pretty rudimentary down-looking fish finder on it. Nothing special here, right? We had a very nice side scanning system on a different boat that I was on about a week prior to this trip. That was helpful. That was helpful. We could see obstructions on bottom. Again, I didn't go down there and look at them with my own eyes, so I'm not going to tell you they're rocks, but I think they were. They seemed like they were. But you could see them. And a lot of times when we didn't catch fish for a while, we wanted to move the boat a little bit and hit some new water. It was really very helpful to be able to put along on the electric trolling motor for, however long until we said, oh, okay, that's good. Right there on bottom, we got something, got some structure off to the port side, 30 feet, cast off to starboard. That was very, very helpful. All right, Zach, you can take us on to the next one or throw up questions, whichever, man. Fluoro leader, yes. I can't tell you that it's necessary because I didn't do it side by side against mono leader. But the truth of the matter is these days fluoro is pretty much all leader I use, because if I'm not using fluoro, then I'm going, if I don't get bit immediately, I'm like, oh my God, I should have tied on fluoro. That's less visible, So I just tie it on all the time now, so I don't worry about it. There are some fisheries where I'm sure it doesn't matter who. But the fact of the matter is it is less visible. In some fisheries, it's night and day. So that's all I use. And just for the record, we're using 20-pound for these fish. That's going light. 30 would be fine. I like it light, but 20-pound fluoro for the slot reds it's enough. Even a 24-inch red does fight harder than a 24-inch rock. It's heavier than a 24-inch rock too, generally speaking. And this will feel like light gear. It'll feel like I think that's exact same rig. I just picked up off the wall earlier and showed off. I might be wrong, but I mean, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the exact same rig. It's light stuff for these fish, but it's a lot of fun, and it's perfectly competent for anything in the slot. I'm getting a sneak peek on the next slide right now. I'm trying to remember why I put it in there. What was it? What was it? There it is. Oh, I know why I threw that in there. So I just wanted to show one with a guy using a conventional reel, because that's perfectly fine too. I like using spinning gear. It's just what I like. It's what I grew up with. It's what I always use, you know. But lots of guys throw conventional stuff. Absolutely fine. No problem there whatsoever. The next slide, a lot of people are going to hate. I don't love it much myself, but I want to point it out because it's true. Yes, you can fish bait for these fish. What you see here is a chunk of cup mullet, soft crab, peeler crab, phenomenal baits for these fish. If you want to, you absolutely can fish bait for them. I pulled the picture of this rig in specific for a very specific reason. What that's got is a circle hook. It's got just 3 inches of leader, and then a crimp, a bead, an egg sinker, a bead, and a crimp. It's a North Carolina rig. Comes out of the Pamlico Sound. There's a name for it. Honest to God, I forget what it's called. It's named after the guy who made it. Can't remember what it is. But the reason I wanted to show this is because this will not gut hook fish. Now, in a lot of the areas where you might normally see bait used, which is going to be the Tangier Sound, Eastern Shore of Virginia, areas over there, you're more apt to catch some overslot fish. And when you fish with bait, you're more apt to gut hook fish. And this is, you know, plain and simple, really flipping important. You don't want to gut hook a 30-inch drum, much less a 40-inch or a 50-inch. You can't keep these fish. You want to make darn sure you throw them back safe. So if you're going to fish bait in the areas the reds frequent, I would strongly submit to you that this is the rig to use. For whatever reason, the combination of the circle hook and that weight, they do not gut hook. And it's not like we've been kind of sold a bill of goods on the circle hooks in a lot of ways on the rockfish. A lot of us have seen gut hook rockfish with circle hooks in the last couple of seasons. But I've fished this rig. This rig was showed to me, man, I don't know, 25 years ago when I was fishing with the Grady White guys on the Pamlico. And the reason they all use it is because you never gut hook the fish. And you can catch the oversized fish and release them and they're good. And it works. So actually, now that I've said that, next year I think maybe I'm going to carry out an experiment. I didn't even fish bait once for rockfish this year. I think next year I might carry an experiment. Try that exact rig, live lining for rockfish. See if that doesn't avoid all the gut hooks. Interesting. Never thought of that until this very moment. Huh. Gonna have to try that. What do we got, Zach? We got a question? We got a slide? What do we got? What do we got? You could win this. Oh, is the red drum slot the same as an empty? Not really, Kevin. It's an inch different. I think Virginians get 1 inch more or 1 inch less. I believe we're 1828. Someone's going to have to check me on it. I always got to check this stuff every time. But I think Virginians get 1 inch different. And I think Potomac matches Maryland. Who's Googling? Who's Googling right now? Right? I'm not going to try because if I get off of this screen and go on the other screen, I'll totally lose all this. I know it's going to happen. But someone will do it. Someone will chime in. It's close, but not the same. Getting a sneak peek on the next slide. This is a good one. Oh, we didn't get to the next slide. We got another question. Okay, I'm on the Pianki tank. There are oyster reefs, grass bed, docks, points. What made the best structure target? Thanks. Okay, so Eric, the oyster reef is awesome. And someone correct me if I'm wrong. I know they're in the James. I know they're in the Rap. I think the Pianki tank also has some of the VMRC seeded reefs that have done very well. Honestly, that would be like my first starting point. Grass beds, yeah, I'd hit them, but I like the hard structure more. The oyster reef is excellent. Docks, you'll pick a few off. You're going to find that if you fish 30 docks, 1 or 2 will hold the fish. And you'll find that those same 1 or 2 are going to be the hot docks, like consistently through time. Points, yeah, but for reds, you want that structure, man. I want points with riprap. If I just see like a sandy point or a grassy point, I'm probably blowing it off, honestly. But if it's got riprap sticking out into the water, that's where I'm casting. So the artificial Mary reefs in Tangier hold reds. I can't say that for sure. I don't know. I haven't hit them. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't, but I haven't probed them, and I'm not. I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you that I've caught them off the tanks in the Tangier. They like the tanks. There are like 3 or 4 tanks scattered around. What else? You catch them mixed in kind of most of the good spec areas. But I can't speak to the Mary Reefs. I don't know. I haven't done it. If someone else has, please, by all means, people, chime in. Let us know. That's the same old slide, Zach. Give me the next slide. What size circle do you consider to be the minimum? So that, I believe, is a 10-aught. It's bigger than it looks. And I'm pretty convinced at this point that using circle hooks that are too small is part of the problem with all the rockfish. Like a 6-aught circle hook, you catch 10 rockfish, one of them is going to be gut hooked. I'm talking inline circles. It still happens. The 8-aughts, I think, are minimal. 10-aught is better. And it looks huge. You know, you stick it through the spot and you're like, man, can the spot really still swim? But it can. It can. And you definitely gut hook fewer fish. Hey, Fred, just jumped on. Are you catching slots on popping quirks? If so, in shallows, what are you casting shallow? So I haven't. I'm certainly not going to say that's not going to work. I'm sure it will. I know the guys at Virginia use them down in the South Bay. I haven't tried them though, so I can't tell you in this zone they will. I strongly suspect they would if I were fishing in, say, 6-7 feet or less. That's a rig that I would be perfectly happy to throw and try. Is it worth fishing shallow grassy areas for the slot fish? I think that's for the slot fish. Is it worth it? Yes. You will find reds, usually on the periphery, sometimes in potholes, sometimes in points or abnormalities on grass beds. What I've been encountering recently is hard structure. So like if I was going tomorrow, I wouldn't be searching out grass beds. Average season, would I try casting around grass beds? Yes, absolutely. Unless the recent trend has been, hey, I'm finding them around rocks, you know. But yeah, it's worth it. Yes. General rule of thumb. I have caught up. Oh, Eric, hey, okay, very good. So Eric, would you please back that up and just let us know? Are you talking in the Patuxent or Potomac, or like just give us a general zone so folks know where you're throwing those quirks, okay? I suspect you might be talking Patuxent, right? Because I know you fish there a lot, but just please give us a little bit more there. And while we wait for Eric to come back, Zach, why don't you give me next slide? Oh, make it big. You can barely see it. Come on. Come on, bigger, 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 bigger. Oh, shucks. All right, folks. I apologize. It didn't come out as nice as I was hoping. I thought it'd be a little more visible. What I wanted to portray here was something that, whoa, something that came up in an earlier question, and that's water quality. And this was obviously very nice water. We just had beautiful water this day. We got a speck as well as the reds, countless lizardfish, multiple little rockfish, bluefish. Man, it was just great. All kinds of stuff biting. So you get that nice clear water. Yeah, absolutely, that is a help. Go ahead and slide me the next slide, will you, Zach, and make the next one big too. We're gonna put Brian up here on screen real quick. So this is a man. I wish I'd taken the picture. It's a gorgeous picture, isn't it? Beautiful pup. What I wanted to really show here, though, is the nets that were used with these fish. Now, when you're fishing in the areas we've been talking about, you're not likely to get a big bull. You could, but you're not likely to. But you could get one that's 29 inches, right? So he's outside of the slot. More likely, you're going to get 15, 16, 17-inch reds that are below the slot. Now, because of that, you really want to have nets like these, okay? These have knotless, rubber-coated mesh. Critical feature for a landing net. And if you're still fishing with one of the old-style knotted nylon nets, man, get rid of that thing. Please, throw it away. Just get rid of it. Go to the tackle shop. Get a proper, knotless, rubber-coated mesh net. All right? Because what happens is when you scoop up a fish in that knotted nylon, the weight of the fish pressing and rubbing against those knots rubs off its slime. And the fish's slime is its natural defense system. It's its immune system. It keeps out infection. It does some other stuff too, evidently. It helps the fish move through the water better, but critically, it helps prevent infection. So if you net an undersized fish or an oversized fish, even if you get the hook out fast and let it go, you're potentially injuring that fish. And Lord knows, none of us want to damage or injure or harm fish that we're not going to keep and eat, right? And this is a biggie. This is a biggie, because if you have that knotted nylon net on your boat, I mean, my God, how many fish do you net throughout the course of the year and then release, you know? We really want to be using nets like these, rubberized, knotless mesh. I'm going to tell you right now, if you still have a knotted nylon net on your boat, honestly, there's no excuse. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. We know better now. We know better now. I used to have them. I didn't know any better. I do not anymore. In fact, my crabbing skiff, I had a little net on, and I took it off and I stuck it in the rafters of my shed. It's an antique now because they're not a nylon. And I'm cheap. If I can stand to go buy a new net, you can stand to go buy a new net. So go buy a new net, okay? Rubberized, not free mesh. Please, 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 please. All right. I'll get off that pulpit now. Zach, do we have any more questions? Oh, ever fish visually for tailing redfish? So in Florida, absolutely. In the Tangier Sound, I've heard of it, haven't done it myself. I don't think it happens nearly as often. Western Shore, Virginia, don't think it happens nearly as often. Now, that said, on one trip about, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, I don't know, few weeks ago, we saw them up top. We did. They weren't really tailing because they weren't in, they were in, water that was too deep, but they came up to the surface. They were rolling. They came up to the surface. They were easily identifiable as, oh my God, yes, that's redfish. Chased them, got a cast or two close into them. Didn't catch them like that. However, I know from my son, who was fishing down there the week before that they did come up and roll, and they did cast to them rolling and caught them on jig with no problem. In fact, I think he said like 3 people on the boat. Everybody hooked up at the same time when they came up and rolled. So we got any more questions there? What do we got? Will these cool days chase the fish away? So eventually, but I don't. It's still very warm out there, and it's not getting cold. It's just cool. Like I was saying before, my guess is, unless another big cold push comes, we probably got another week or 2 or 3 left for mackerel. That water's still, well over 80 degrees, or at least it was over the weekend. I think we got some mac time left in the areas they've been in. And the drum will hang out, weeks beyond that, maybe a month, maybe even more. And then after that, like I was saying before, they're going to start popping up in the warm water areas. Those warm water zones are going to start to, they're going to start to show up there. I should say, the Virginia guys at the mouth of the bay, not all Virginia waters, but down towards the mouth of the bay, Willoughby, Norfolk, Hampton, they were catching redfish basically through the winter this year. They like really never even left, I don't think. Might have been a couple slow weeks in the dead of winter, but like March, they were banging on them. They were catching a ton of them. So, these fish, they don't like it cold, but a little chill in the air is not going to send them running.
All right. Earlier, Lenny, we had a guy named Adam ask about what ramp he should launch his boat at for the best odds. He's from Baltimore, but he's willing to drive to the fish.
Okay. So if you're coming from Baltimore, I'm saying go to Point Lookout. That's going to be a good shot for you. If you can stay on the drive and go to the Piankatank, you'll have better chances. But Point Lookout is good. Point Lookout is solid. The other option will be St. George's Island. There's a boat ramp there. I think it's right under the bridge to the island. That puts you out onto the Potomac where it meets the St. Mary's. You can go up to St. Mary's and just, you got a million options up there. Those would be the 2 that I would finger. So you're coming from Baltimore, you're looking at 2.5 hours maybe. I think St. George's might be like 10 minutes closer, but not much. But both are going to be really good, solid options. And both are good boat ramps. If you go to Point Lookout, you also have, full restroom facilities, a fish cleaning station that's nice. It's undercover. It's got running water. That's good, good stuff.
Cool.
Did Eric come back and tell us where he got him on the cork yet?
He did not, actually.
Dang, come on, Eric. Come on, man.
You just mentioned Point Lookout, didn't you?
I'm sorry?
You just mentioned Point Lookout, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Can you catch him trolling along Point Lookout? So that can mean a lot of things. I mean, I don't want to say no, because if you went to deeper water off Point Lookout and trolled through breaking fish, you may very well troll up a bull red, If you trolled the shoreline with maybe like a swimming plug, then you might get a slot fish. You absolutely could. I mean, I guess the answer is yes either way. Just depends on where you're going to troll and what you're going to pull. But yeah, I don't see why not.
Cool. Eric said Piney Point. So.
Piney Point. Okay. So that tells you, that the whole zone, the popping cork could work in, because that's, you're not going far off, right? And thank you, Eric.
We had a couple questions about Mobjack Bay. I don't know how much we touched on it. Do you have any input?
Mobjack. So I haven't been down there in a long time, but that is a cool area. I want to check one thing, if I can. Hopefully I won't lose you on this computer screen. But I think we have an article at fishtalkmag.com. We do. So go to Fish Talk Mag. And I don't want to talk off. If I haven't fished somewhere in, 6-8 years, I don't want to talk off the top of my head, because I'm going to mix it up and get it wrong, because my memory is not great. This article I wrote a long time ago. I did write this one, but I wrote it a long time ago, and it's going to be accurate. If you just go to fishtalkmag.com, go to the search box, upper right-hand corner, little box says search, plug in Mobjack, and you'll get the article Fishing Mobjack Bay and the Piankatank River. And that has good spots. In fact, if I remember right, let me double check. I think this includes some of those VMRC reefs. Not sure if they're in Mobjack or the Pianka tank, but I'm pretty sure it includes. Oh, look at that! Zach's ahead of the game. He's already got it pulling it up there. There it is. There it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of those oyster reefs we were talking about earlier are marked off in here. And those are public reefs. They're public numbers. You can get them from VMRC. But at least historically, like I say, I haven't been there a long time, and I can't speak to this season. But historically, these are good spots. And year to year, they're spots you want to check out. That's very cool water. Mobjack is just gorgeous water. A lot of grass down there. Beautiful.
So hey, while we're talking about our website, we just want to remind everybody of all the Red Drum content we have.
Yeah, I see you already pulled up Red Drum for Beginners. That's great. And we also have full features on how to catch the bulls if you want to target the bulls in open water. If I remember right, I think Captain Pete Dahlberg wrote that one. We have my memory's awful. There are multiple. Yeah, you can find a lot.
Yeah, so if you just
a lot of good intel in there.
So like Lenny said earlier, if you just go to our site and you use the search box and type in Red Drum, you see we have about a dozen different articles or so. All right. So Chuck asked, any other favorite jig colors other than white?
Chuck, personally, not right now. It'll change. If you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said chartreuse. Last few years, it's been white. Now, I will say there was one other color that I've seen multiple anglers on the boats I'm on catching fish on while fishing for reds, catch reds on, and that is the electric chicken. Eric will stop me if I'm wrong, but I think he was throwing it the other day. I think David might have been throwing it one day. The electric chicken has been a hot color, not just for reds. I'm for specs too. It's been a good, solid color in recent years. And white, honestly, I found that best for rockfish, for specks. Although Zach will argue with me about the electric chicken, I'm sure, because he did pretty darn well with the electric chicken the last time I was throwing white. But I love the white. I'm totally hip to. I mean, it's been a hot color. It changes through time, though. It changes.
Question from Michael.
What town in Virginia would give you the closest access to the most species launching from your own dock? Oh my God, that's a tough question. Wow, man, I don't know. Sounds to me like you're getting ready to buy a place in Virginia. I honestly, I do not know the answer to that question. I think who I'd ask that question of is John Page Williams. I bet he knows. But once you get down into Virginia waters, you've got better diversity over the long haul. And I say over the long haul because some of the areas of Virginia waters are not seeing tons of reds. They're not seeing tons of specks. They're certainly not seeing tons of rockfish. But they'll see them. You know what I mean? They'll see them as the fish move up. They'll see them as the fish move down. Might be a gap in the middle where they're fishing for something else, right? But over the long haul, once you get down, man, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Once you get south of the Potomac, you get a lot more diversity over the long haul throughout the course of the season. Beyond that, I don't know how to answer that. That's a tough one. You got to ask somebody who lives in Reedville. Ask them.
Well, we've got a lot of comments. Steve says Pianka Tank.
Pianka Tank's an awesome spot.
Yorktown.
How can you argue with Newport News? Because now you're within range of Ocean Fish and Deltaville.
So
that's a big question.
More lore questions.
Have you tried glow color? You know, honestly, I have not. Haven't tried it. Maybe it'll work. I would think it'd be good. Glow, I've found fabulous when you're fishing DOA shrimp for specks. It's like the DOA shrimp color. But most of that fishing that I've done has taken place farther south. But glow is gorgeous for that. It'd be a good one to try.
I agree, Lenny. The DOI is tremendous. Compared to like the Bass Assassin stuff I've used, I mean, it's like it glows like crazy. The DOA is unreal.
Wow, they do. They're an effective bait.
This is an interesting question.
Oh man. Okay, so easy way, go with someone who's been catching and knows exactly where it is. Second easy way, fish, and feel for it and look for it on your meter. Third easy way, third easiest is going to be side finder. Side finder is very helpful with finding structure. I'm not a giant believer in finding fish. Fish, you need a lot of screen territory to really effectively use it for that. But finding structure, you can find on just about any side scanner. Now, here's the thing about the fish finder that many people botch. They look at the fish finder and they think that if the bottom is really thick, the bottom line is really thick, they're looking at hard structure. That's the reverse. Hard returns show up very skinny. What happens is your transducer is pinging a sound wave, right? It goes down. When it hits muck, it keeps going a little bit and then it returns. You get a big, broad bottom reading. If you've got a rock surrounded by sand, your bottom line on your meter, if it's this thick continually, it's suddenly going to go like that, and then it'll go like that again. You just went over a rock. Might not even change depth. Probably will, but might not change much, you know? It might just look like a little bump. But when you see that line get skinny, really skinny, that's bouncing off hard rock. That sound wave is going down and just pop immediately bouncing right back. So using your standard issue fish finder, I mean, this will work. It's perfectly fine to use your $200 El Cheapo unit. I'm talking right now. It will show you this. It absolutely will show you this. And I know it's counterintuitive. Prove it to yourself. Go to a spot where you know there's rocks and drive over it and watch your fish finder. See what happens. Oh, I should mention one other thing. You can always go to a chart. People seem to have forgotten what charts are these days, right? I still have my chart books. You'll see like a little circle and RCK. That means there's rocks, or, you know, and don't depend on it. It's not going to be exact. You'll need to use your fish finder or your side finder, whatever. But you will, you know, it'll give you a starting point. You can find out, you know, where those rocks are. And again, you'll feel it, you know, in your jig. When your jig, I don't know how to describe it. You can feel it tinging off the rock as opposed to just thumping into the bottom.
All right.
You got any more questions? I got this hot little babe right here. I'm dying to give away.
Yeah.
Listen to that. Listen to those rattles. Oh.
Well, I think that's it, Lenny.
Wow. Okay.
Excellent. I think we've gone over our programming schedule, so you know, I think we have to wrap it up here. Lots of great questions. Thanks everyone for joining us. You know, the red trout tournament's coming up this weekend. That's presented by Coastal Conservation Association of Maryland. That'll be held at Buzz's Marina down in Ridge. Also this month is the Tangier Classic. I believe we're a sponsor of that tournament as well, and that will be held down in Crisfield at the American Legion from September 24th to 26th. So hopefully these Lenny's redfish tactics, you know, help you guys get a leading edge on these tournaments. So some good opportunities to get out there.
Do we have a lucky winner?
Lots of good comments. So let me put it in the random generator here.
I'm putting it in a box. I have a box for it and everything. There it is.
And we got Rudy Yarworth. Rudy Yarworth had a lot of engaging questions. So Rudy,
Very nice.
congratulations. You got your Lip Rippers fish talk. Is there a Calcutta in these fishing tournaments if you win with a fish talk Lip Ripper lure?
Ooh. I'll tell you what. Right now, just on Zach's word, if you're using a fish talk lure and you win anything in a tournament, you automatically also win a fish talk t-shirt. Gotta happen, right?
Yeah.
Gotta happen.
And any Calcutta winnings you give to Lenny and I, right? Let's split it evenly.
And Rudy, just PM us on. Is he on Facebook or on YouTube?
He's a Facebook user, so.
Okay, good. So just PM us on Facebook. We'll get your address and get this little beauty shipped on out to you. I'm very excited by this. I love the fish talk one. I just gotta say, Lip Rippers, right? They'll customize. If you got a company and you want like the world's most awesome giveaway, go to liprippers.com, spelled with a Z at the end, and order some lures. They'll put your logo on there. Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Lenny.
Thank you, Zach. It's been a fun evening. I hope everybody's enjoyed it.
Awesome. So tune in next month, second Thursday of the month, October 14th. Hope to see you all then.